For those of you who don't know me, I'm Anna, as Faith just said, and I'm married to the lovely Jo, who is in the booth at the minute. And together we have two beautiful children, Orla and Percy. As Faith said, I'm part of the staff team here at Bay Church. On a Sunday morning, you wouldn't normally find me here on the stage. You're far more likely to find me in the kids' groups, helping in the cafe, on Welcome, or just trying to stop my kids from having too many chocolates. So standing up here feels quite strange. But I'm really grateful for the chance to share with you all this morning. As part of my role here, Faith already said a little bit of this, but I oversee our Bay Village projects. So if you've not heard that term before, it's basically the umbrella for all of our social action projects, which is our response to the needs in our community. And central to the vision behind Bay Village is this belief that each of us has been given a gift by God, and those gifts are part of how he calls us to serve him. So over the last few weeks, we've been in a series called Who Me? And we've been looking at unlikely characters in the Bible who were called by God to do extraordinary things. So Bishop James kicked off the series looking at King Saul and Peter, one of Jesus' disciples, and then Faith unpacked the life of Mary, mother of Jesus. And last week, Rachel explored the courage of Miriam. So this morning, I'll be wrapping up the series by looking at Moses and Aaron. Now, I'm sure we're all familiar with the story of Moses. He's probably one of the biggest names in the Bible. In fact, he's mentioned a massive 852 times. His story and Aaron's spans the books of Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, and it's a story that's full of drama, miracles, divine intervention, and it's where we read about the burning bush, the 10 plagues of Egypt, the parting of the Red Sea, manna falling from heaven, the 10 Commandments, all of the good stuff. So together, Moses and Aaron led the Israelites out of slavery and on their journey toward the Promised Land. I can't cover it all this morning, unfortunately. I know that's disappointing, but I do want to highlight a few powerful lessons that I feel God has shared with me, which I hope will encourage us today. So I'm going to start with reading the story of Moses and the burning bush from Exodus chapter 3 and 4, which is the moment where Moses is called by God. So I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm going to start with a bit of Exodus 3, and then I'm going to skip ahead to the end of Exodus 4, okay? I think it's going to come up on the screen, but if you've got your Bibles, feel free to turn to the right page. Okay. Now Moses was tending the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the far side of the wilderness and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. There the angel of the Lord appeared to him in flames of fire from within a bush. Moses saw that though the bush was on fire, it did not burn up. So Moses thought, I will go over and see this strange sight, why the bush does not burn up. When the Lord saw that he had gone over to look, God called to him from within the bush, Moses, Moses. And Moses said, Here I am. Do not come any closer, God said. Take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy ground. Then he said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. At this, Moses hid his face, because he was afraid to look at God. The Lord said, I have indeed seen the misery of my people in Egypt. I have heard them crying out because of their slave drivers, and I am concerned about their suffering. So I have come down to rescue them from the hand of the Egyptians and to bring them up out of that land into a good and spacious land, a land flowing with milk and honey, the home of the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites. And now the cry of the Israelites has reached me, and I have seen the way the Egyptians are oppressing them. So now go. I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. But Moses said to God, Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt? And God said, I will be with you, and this will be the sign to you that it is I who have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you will worship God on this mountain. And we're going to skip ahead. Moses said to the Lord, Pardon your servant, Lord. I have never been eloquent. I am slow of speech and tongue. The Lord said to him, Who gave human beings their mouths? Who makes them deaf or mute? Who gives them sight or makes them blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now go, I will help you speak, and I will teach you what to say." But Moses said, "Pardon your servant, Lord, please send someone else." Then the Lord's anger burned against Moses, and he said, "What about your brother Aaron the Levite? I know that he can speak well. He is already on his way to meet you, and he will be glad to see you. You shall speak to him and put words in his mouth. I will help both of you speak and will teach you what to do. He will speak to the people for you, and it will be as if he were your mouth and as if you were God to him. But take this staff in your hand so you can perform the signs with it." This is the word of the Lord. So in lots of ways, I can relate to Moses in this moment. When Matt first asked me to speak on a Sunday morning, I have to be honest, I felt a bit sick. And I often get this feeling when I feel like God is calling me to something, minor panic and a sick feeling in my stomach. So I've learned over the years that when I feel like that, it normally means that I have to say yes, even if I don't want to. Now, I'm no stranger to standing up on a stage with a microphone. Growing up, I did quite a lot of theatre, lots of singing, and probably most of you in this room have seen me make a fool of myself on this stage in one of our spectaculars. But none of those times ever felt quite as daunting as standing on a stage as just me, with my own words to say. Sorry, Joe, I've already started. I've never felt like I'm particularly good at speaking. Somehow the words don't come out the way I'd like. They're not articulate enough, or I get stupidly emotional at all the wrong times. In fact, Joe, my husband, is always making fun of me for crying when I have to talk about myself or something that I'm passionate about. So I'm going to try my best not to embarrass myself this morning. So in this moment, when God is asking Moses to go to Pharaoh and tell him to set his people free, I know I would have reacted in the same way. "Please, God, not me. I'm not good at this." Moses' exact words are, "Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt?" But how does God respond? He doesn't belittle him. He simply says, "I will be with you." And this is the first point that I wanted to highlight this morning. We may come before God with nothing to offer and not feel capable of doing what he has called us to do, and yet God will never make fun of you, shame you for your fear, or abandon you. He simply says, "I will go with you." So as we've been exploring in this series, time and time again, God chooses the people who feel like they cannot do what he is calling them to do. They're not qualified. They don't feel like they're good enough. Moses says he's slow of speech and tongue. He is terrified that he will say the wrong things and that Pharaoh will not listen to him. He pleads with God to send someone else. And God simply replies, "Who gave human beings their mouths? Is it not I, the Lord? Now go, I will help you speak, and I will teach you what to say." God is saying here that it doesn't matter to him if Moses is qualified or if he feels like he can even do the job that he is asking of him. He will help him. God is not limited by our weakness. He simply promises his presence. He chooses unlikely people to carry out his plan so that his power is clear, not their ability. As it says in 2 Corinthians, his power is made perfect in our weakness. There's no way that Moses would be able to step into this calling without the presence of God, just like there's no way that I would be able to stand here and talk to you this morning without it. This is so far out of my comfort zone, but his power is made perfect in my weakness, in our weakness. So that's the first encouragement I'd like to share with us, that when God calls us, he goes with us, he helps us, and he teaches us what to say. The next thing I'd like to share is that God sees us for who we are. Now, up until this point, Moses has led quite an interesting life. He was rescued by his sister Miriam when Pharaoh ordered all the Israelite baby boys to be killed. To keep him safe, she placed him in a basket and floated him down the River Nile, where he was discovered by the Pharaoh's daughter, who chose to adopt him as her own. He grew up in the Pharaoh's palace and lived a life of privilege in Egypt for the first 40 years of his life. And then, after he killed an Egyptian who he saw beating an Israelite slave, he was forced to flee to Midian, which, just for context, is about 300 miles away from Egypt. There he gets married and leads a quiet life as a shepherd for the next 40 years, until this point, at 80 years old, when God speaks to him through a burning bush and gives him this incredible calling that seems impossible, to free the Israelites who have been enslaved in Egypt for over 400 years and lead them to the promised land. And so Moses immediately objects. He feels completely unqualified. I mean, who would feel qualified? All he can see is his own weaknesses and limitations, but God can see his potential. When Moses asks, "Who, me?" God says, "Yes, you." You see, God knows everything about Moses. He knows all of his story. He knows how his knowledge of the Egyptian royal court will help him. He also sees his heart of compassion for the Israelites, his boldness, and most importantly, his faith in God and willingness to serve him. God then calls his brother Aaron to help Moses, because he has strengths that Moses doesn't have. He is a confident speaker. He's good at talking to people. He's good at making relationships. And here's a little spoiler alert. If you're not familiar with the story of Exodus, I'll just give you a really brief account about what happens next. So Moses and Aaron obey God, and together they go to Egypt. Aaron assembles the leaders of the Israelites and speaks to them, and then they go to Pharaoh. Moses listens to God and performs miracles, and Aaron speaks to Pharaoh. Finally, after quite a long battle, Pharaoh sets the Israelites free. So God takes the gifts that they each already have, Moses' compassion and boldness and Aaron's confidence and eloquence, and he multiplies them for his glory. When Moses holds the staff, God works miracles. When Aaron speaks, God uses his voice to confront Pharaoh. Together they accomplish something far greater than either of them could have ever done alone. So I'd love to share with you the story of how I ended up in this job, in this role here at Bay Church. The job I was in before this, I had been there since I graduated from university, so that was 9 years of my life, which makes me feel quite old. And it was a great job. I loved it, and I was good at it. We had a wonderful team of people who all had different skills, and together we worked really, really well. And I would say that I was kind of the Aaron in the situation. I was the number two. I was the cheerleader. So when my boss was asked to retire early for budget reasons, along with other things, I was a bit upset, a bit confused, but I was determined to carry on the legacy that she'd built because she had been in that role for 35 years. She'd built the whole department, and I really wanted to carry it on. And I know that she wanted me to take over from her one day, so I felt a certain level of responsibility. So what followed that was a year of limbo, really. My role technically didn't change, but everything changed as well. So the team was different, and I was suddenly unsure of what my position was and what my future was going to look like. I think if you'd asked me just before that, I would have said I would be there forever. My husband, Joe, is a musician, and he travels quite a lot for his work. And so at this time, he was starting to go away a lot more, and it was getting more and more hard for me to be working. It was about a 45-minute drive there and back, so 45 minutes there, 45 minutes back. It was quite a lot for me to be traveling all of that time in a day, and then coming home and juggling life and kids, and it was getting harder. And I sort of started to fall out of love with the job, which was strange for me. So I was feeling like I wasn't really sure what was happening. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, they decided to employ someone else to take over and run the department. And I was a bit shocked, because I sort of thought that was going to be me. I felt completely overlooked. I felt really hurt. I felt quite angry. I cried a lot. I felt really embarrassed that I'd sort of poured so much of my heart into it. But I also felt a little bit relieved. Um, Kind of felt like a get out of jail free card, because obviously I'd been falling out of love with it. It hadn't felt the same. Um, and I realized that I had been holding on to something that wasn't the same anymore, that it wasn't, it wasn't what I loved anymore. And the reason I was falling out of love with it was because God was preparing me to move on. He was calling me somewhere else. I just didn't know where yet. So I handed in my notice, knowing that I had about 9 weeks. Sorry. Just going to grab a tissue. Tried. I got fairly far without crying. Sorry, everyone. So, thank you. So I handed in my notice, knowing I had 9 weeks of notice to work, with nothing in place to go on to, which was a big leap of faith. And we couldn't really afford for me to not work for ages, so I just had to hope and pray that something would come in that time. A couple of weeks later, I first heard about the job vacancy here at Bay, and I have to be honest with you, I completely wrote it off. I just didn't know if it was for me. There was a lot of reasons. I think my self-confidence had taken a knock. I was feeling pretty low about my abilities, who I was. I was questioning everything. I wasn't sure if I would be good at it, if I would enjoy it, if I was confident enough, kind enough, holy enough, if I was good enough. But then quite a lot of people kept prompting me to think about it, and lots of people said to me, "Oh, I think you'd be really good at it." Matt and Faith being two of those people, and lots of other wonderful friends. And it was enough people to make me think, "Oh, maybe I should actually consider this and take it a bit more seriously." So I prayed about it, and I applied and handed it over to God and just said, if it's meant to be, it will be. If I'm right for it, then it will happen. And if I'm not right for it, then it obviously wasn't meant to be. And then obviously, you know what happened next. And when I first started, I don't know whether I felt like I was good at this role. And it's taken a little bit of time to get to this point now. But after 9 months, I can see how God has used every single part of my journey up to this point. My education, past jobs, everything I learned from those 9 years in that job, I've used still. Church experiences, life challenges, relationship challenges, and I feel like he's used all of those things to prepare me for this that I'm doing now. And I can see that I was always meant to be doing this. I'm meant to be doing it because of my uniqueness, because of who I am, because of what I'm good at, because of how sorry. I wasn't even meant to cry at this bit, or any of it. But yeah, anyway. Because of who I am, and because of everything I've experienced, I feel like I can bring all of those things to this. And I know that there are other parts of my story that I haven't used yet, and I'm sure there will be points in my future where God will need me to use those things. And I just have to wait for the right time. Anyway, my point of this story, sorry. The point is, each of us has our own story. Mine is very different to yours. But God sees us for who we are. He sees everything that we've been through, everything that we are, everything that we're good at, everything that we're not so good at, all of our strengths, our weaknesses, what's in our hearts. And he calls us because of those things, not in spite of them. So your story matters, your journey matters. The lessons you're learning have to count for something bigger than you, because God can use them for his glory. Moses didn't feel prepared for the for the role that God was calling him to. Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt? He grew up an outsider and spent 40 years hiding, but God knows who he is and what he has been through. He knows that there are parts of his past that he probably wants to forget. But what he has been through makes him uniquely qualified. Much of Moses' story was ruled by fear. Much of the Israelite story up to this point was ruled by pain and oppression. And much of my story was filled with self-doubt and feelings of inadequacy. God spoke to Moses through a burning bush. But for me, it was more like a whisper through other people. When God calls us, it won't always be in a loud, booming, surprising voice. Sometimes it's quiet and small, and through other people's encouragements. And I feel like some of you in this room today may feel like there are points in your story that are too hard, too painful, too shameful, that they should disqualify you from ever being chosen or set apart by God. But let me say this, when Jesus died on the cross, he set us free. He redeemed your story so that God can use it for good. Just like the little boy in John's Gospel who offers 5 loaves and 2 fish, and Jesus feeds a crowd of 5,000 people with it. God multiplies whatever we have to offer. We just have to give what we have and who we are willingly and let him do the rest, because he sees us for who we are and he chooses us anyway. Sorry, I'm just gonna... Joe actually said to me that if I cried this morning, he was going to put me in a headlock. Obviously, he was joking, but don't get worried about our relationship, please. He's going to kill me for saying that. Oh, stop talking. Anyway, so we've talked about how God calls us because he knows us. He sees us for who we are, and that when he calls us, he goes with us. For my final encouragement, I'd like to talk to you about how God gives us everything that we need. So we've talked a lot in this series about how God doesn't call the equipped, but he equips the called. But as Faith explored in her talk a couple of weeks ago, we don't always know what it is that we need to be equipped with to fulfill his purpose. I really enjoyed rereading this story of Moses and the burning bush because I missed out quite a lot of it in the middle, because it's basically a lot of backwards and forwards of God saying, you can do it, and Moses saying, no, I can't. Moses is 80 at this point, and yet he makes it really clear that he doesn't want to go, and he has like a comeback for everything that God says. Every time God encourages him, he comes up with some excuse as to why he shouldn't be the one to go. I'll tell you who he reminds me of here, my son, Percy. As I mentioned earlier, Joe and I have 2 beautiful children, Orla, who is 5, and Percy, who is 3. You've probably seen them running around here on a Sunday morning, causing all kinds of chaos. Orla's normally wearing some sort of floaty, pretty pink dress, and Percy is normally roaring at people because up until this point, he spent most of his life pretending to be a dinosaur. Percy is clever and creative, but he negotiates everything, and it's exhausting. So just like Moses here, he hates doing anything on his own. Whether that's something he enjoys, like doing a puzzle, building something, or something he doesn't enjoy, like tidying up. It can become a real battle when I actually need him to do that thing that I'm asking him to do. And generally, I have to ask him about 7 or 8 times before, I finally give up and help him, or I give up and I ask his sister to help him. He will give me excuse after excuse as to why he cannot do it. It can go from, I'm busy. I'll do it in a minute. I need Orla. I can't do it on my own. And my personal favorite at the minute, I can do whatever I want. So I do feel like I can understand some of what God is feeling here with Moses. Every time he reassures him, Moses has another reason why he can't do it. And then I see what they both have in common. As a younger sibling, Percy has never had to do anything on his own. He was born with a ready-made friend. He has always had his older sister to reassure him, encourage him, and to help him when things feel too hard. And she is always there when he needs her. I've sometimes wondered why God doesn't just give Moses the gift of eloquence so he can speak to Pharaoh. But God knows that Moses finds the task too big to do alone. So as hard as he is trying to encourage him, that he can do it on his own, that he can go because he'll be with him and he will help him and he will give him the words to say, he can see that what he really needs is someone to work in partnership with him, to reassure him, to encourage him, and to help him when things feel too hard. Eventually it says, the Lord's anger burned against Moses, and God finally says, fine, what about your brother Aaron? He can go with you, he can speak for you. Yes, who better to help him than his big brother, who is already a confident speaker, he has that gifting already, and who has probably also had years of practice helping his younger brother. You see, God will never call us to do something that we cannot do. He will equip us with everything that we need for the task at hand. Sometimes that might be giving us a gift, but other times it may be providing other people to walk with us in our journey. Even as leaders who are called by God, Moses and Aaron both need each other. They each have their own failings and weaknesses, but as they work together as a team, they help each other. And it's only by working together, trusting each other, that they are able to fulfill God's mission. And that's how do any of us get anything done without the help and support of other people? Now, there may already be people in your life who God has put there to encourage you. Like Moses had Aaron and Percy has Orla. Or maybe you are that person for someone else. This story shows us the importance of finding and accepting those people that God sets to walk alongside us, who will support us, encourage us, and lift us up. So this is what I would like to finish off with to encourage you this morning. If you feel a calling on your life, however big or small, don't hesitate, don't push away. Don't be afraid, because God goes with you. He will help you and he will teach you what to say. Secondly, God sees you for who you are. He knows your story, your passions, your strengths, and your weaknesses, and he chooses you. He has given each of us precious gifts that are unique and powerful, and he wants to use those for good. And in fact, the very reason you feel unqualified could be the exact reason why you have been chosen. And finally, he will give you everything that you need, including surrounding you with the right people who will support you, encourage you, and journey alongside you. Shall I pray for us? And we'll finish up there.